Here we are on the 18th of Av, Menachem Av. Put those two together. Menachem is the one who gives comfort, the father of comfort. And it's the 18th, which is life. A great day. Not that they all aren't great, but this one has particular signs of being a great day. 18 Menachem Av. Very short. The Middle Rebbe quoted the Alter Rebbe. Here's a quote from the Alter Rebbe. Ahavas Yisrael must possess one to the core of life itself. And the footnote on the side explains to the core that one must be love a fellow Jew to the point of being willing and able to give up one's life. That much. Okay. Lessons in Tanya. We're finishing, I think, this chapter. This is Epistle 5 in the Igutz HaKodesh, the Holy Letters of the Rebbe. It's on in volume 4, page 98. Top of page 98, second paragraph. And in his book, the Hebrew edition, is on page Kuf Tes, opposite page 216. Kind of a little above the middle of the page. If you count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Begins with the word Hamshacha. Okay, David made a name. What did it mean? Through his avodah down here below, his service of Hashem down here below, he sent up a big message to above and drew down the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, that the name with which God formulates all of reality should come down and penetrate this lower world. Ubezeh movin, and with this we will understand Masha Omer Azal, that which our sages have said. Masha Omer Harizal, that which the Arizal has said. The Arizal said is all the writings from the Arizal we have from his student. He was the one who spoke, and his student wrote down. So this is what the Arizal said. He said, "Sheyesh beis mine neshamas." Excuse me, I've got to mute you all. Forgot that. Muting you all, and allowing you to come off mute. So what did he say? He said, the Arizal said there are two types, or two neshamas, two kinds of neshamas amongst the Yisrael, amongst the Jewish people. We have neshamas Talmidei Chachamim. We have souls who have been from the outset designed and who practice learning Torah. That's their profession. Torosai Umunasai. These are people who call their profession is Torah. It's professional scholars. Ha'oiskim b'Torah kol yimeihem, who occupy in Torah, themselves in Torah, all their days. And that's one kind of neshama. And then we have another category of neshamas. This is what the Rizal tells us. Neshamas bali mitzvahs. These are neshamas of people who are generally engaged in mitzvahs. Now, not one to the exclusion of another. Obviously, Talmidei Chachamim have to do mitzvahs. And bali mitzvahs, we who are not Talmidei Chachamim, but engaged in mitzvahs, also have to learn Torah in order to know what to do. But we're putting them in these general categories. Those whose major occupation is learning, and those whose major occupation is doing. And tzedakah, we've learned before, is called ha-mitzvah, the mitzvah. So it's emblematic of all the mitzvahs that we do, tzedakah and acts of kindness, particularly the positive mitzvahs, where you do something with something else, like a candle, or for someone else, like a person. At first glance, as I said, Talmidei Chachamim, those who are professionals, learners, or who are, have to be professional, but whose major occupation of the day is learning, of course, they have to do mitzvahs as well, be engaged in acts of kindness. Kamaim and Azal, as the sages have said, Shafil Torah Ein Le. We brought this up many times. The Chazal said, One who has only Torah, even Torah he doesn't have. Because the Torah isn't about and mainly for the purpose of learning, it's for the purpose of learning in order to do. Gadol Torah, what did the Chachamim said? They argued, which is greater, Torah or mitzvahs? And they concluded, Gadol Torah, great Torah is the great one. Why? Because it brings you to do mitzvahs. Ella, however, Talmid Chachamim, even though, yes, they have to do mitzvahs, Talmid Chachamim, Torah and Ikar, even though their main thing is Torah, and most of their days and most of their day is involved in learning Torah. And it's only a small part of the day that they're doing mitzvahs. So their arousal from below, the mitzvahs that they do, to arouse great kindness up above, and lahamshich ulahorid oren sof, and to bring the draw down and cause to descend the light of the Infinite One, hamalubish b'chokma Allah, which is enclosed in His supernal chokmah, which is the mucker of the Torah, the source of the Torah is God's supernal chokmah. Hashem, Torah Hashem shebepihem, the Torah of Hashem is in their mouth. So yes, but who rak le'olam haneshomis, though Talmidei Chachamim, when they learn Torah, right? This learning of Torah brings down. Let's remember, first of all, oitzek Torah, learning in Torah, limud of Torah is a mitzvah, right? It's a mitzvah of. It's also physical. Brain is involved, and mouth and speech are involved when you're learning Havarusa. But it's not ma'aseh. It doesn't get down to the deed, the actual physical deed with your hands and your feet and your body is not. So therefore, correspondingly, their mitzvahs of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah when they do it, and the few mitzvahs that they do, brings down the flow of Hashem. Rak le'olam haneshama is just to the world of souls, shebebriya, as it says, Talmud bebriya, learning the Talmud. The Talmud itself is repository, is in the world of Bria. And so a Talmid Chacham who spends at that time, which is mostly all of the time that he's a Talmid Chacham, and he's one who's Terasa Umanasa, his profession is Talmud and Torah, so he's bringing down, but he's bringing down only to the world of Bria. Alidei Esek Talmud, through his occupation in the Talmud. And one can bring down further to the angels of the lower world, which is Yetzirah, al yedei limud HaMishnah. The Mishnah comes down to the lower world, to Yetzirah. Because the life force and the constitution of life that's embodied in souls and angels, which flow from the tzirufi oisius, right, which flow from the combinations of letters of Hashem's name, of His speech. This is Torah Sheba'al Peh. This is the oral Torah, Torah Sheba'al Peh. We call it the oral Torah for two reasons. And the simple reason is because it was transmitted and extended and understood through the process of talking together, chaverim. And as a result of their discussions together, the halakha becomes resolved through the discussions of the Talmidei Chachamim. But it's also called the oral Torah because it represents metaphorically, God's speech, oral, expressions of words, and not His deed. It's the expressions of His mouth. So that's called Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah. And as we've learned, the source of letters that one speaks is Chokmah Allah, is from the supernal Chokmah. So Torah is the Chokmah of Hashem. That's this, and it comes out in speech, in the arguments, in the discussion, in the back and forth chavarusas that we have today of clarifying. It's called birur hilchasa, clarifying the halacha. However, so that yes brings down to the world of speech, but we have machshava dibur ma'aseh, right? Thought, speech, and action. It doesn't yet tangibilize itself in the world of physical deed. To bring down, to draw down, and cause to descend the ha'ora, the ray of vitality, of life force, from the level of Hevel Elyon, the supernal breath of the Hey Tato, of the lower Hey, right, the two Heys we've talked about, the Yud K, Vav K, one high, the first K, and the letter, and the second K, or Hey. To bring that down, La'olam Hazeh, HaShuffle, to bring it down to this low world, Shehut Simsim Godel B'Yeser, which is a much greater contraction, right? On the way down, one world after another, Tzilis, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asir, is more contracted and also concealed revelation of Hashem till you get down to this world, which is the lowest of world. So to bring it down, it's not sufficient, the arousal from below, meaning the avoida here on planet Earth that's being done in the vein of studying Talmud alone. The avoida of professional or serious or full-time scholars who occupy themselves most of the time in learning and only a little of the time in tzedakah or gemilas chasadim. To bring that hashpah of Hashem, the flow of God and godly energetic down to the lowest, which is the world of action, they're only acting a little bit, and most of it is in the world of breath and word, which is the higher level. To get it down to earth, to bring heaven down to earth, as one of these authors wrote, a book on that, bringing heaven down to earth. And to get down to earth, as we say in English, just get down to earth. What's the point? Down here, to get that Isarusu, that down here below, you need the Baalei Mitzvahs, the ones who most of their time, like most of us probably, are not Talmidei Chachamim, I would guess, you need the work of the Baalei Oiskim, the one who are getting deep and dirty down here in the lower world. And most of their days are days involved in mitzvahs, tzedakah, and acts of kindness. As is written in the first part, Chelek Aleph, first part of Tanya, chapter 34. Therefore, Nikru Tamche Eiraisa. Therefore, we who are involved most of the day, more in doing deeds and good deeds of Torah and mitzvahs than learning, we are called Tamche Eiraisa, the supporters of the Torah. And that support of the Torah corresponds to the powers that we have, of the 10 powers we have, Netzach and Hoid. This is an allusion to both the 10 powers and the 10 spheros, right? Chochmah, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, and Netzach and Hod are the right leg and the left leg. And we spoke about this before. The thighs which the rest of the body stands on. So the entirety of remaining solid, extant, and active of Torah in the world depends on a support system that's holding it up. Tamchei Deraisa are also the people who give money, because that is support. But the support that we're talking about here is a support that comes by acting out what God has asked us to do in His great wisdom, which is the mitzvahs. So this is the area of Netzach and Hod, the two right and left leg, which hold up the Torah. Liyesin mamshichin ora Torah, and that draws down the light of the Torah not only into the spiritual worlds and into the angels, but lamata, down here below, la'olam hasiyah, into the world of doing, and into ultimately the physical, the lowest part of the world of doing. And that's why we say Ma'aseh HaTzedakah, the act of tzedakah. Reza, your hand is up.
Yeah, because it would seem to me that what the Alter Rebbe is saying, which I never heard before, is when we say that those who give tzedakah are supporters of Torah, it's not just supporters of Torah in the sense that, practically speaking, someone who studies Torah needs support, but it's also that you need both together.
That's what he's saying. More, yes, and
That
the supporters of the Torah, the ones who do deeds, are standing the Torah on its feet. The Torah
they're
remains.
accomplishing a certain spiritual. They're like, if a person gives tzedakah before they study Torah, then what the Torah will accomplish in a spiritual realm will be more effective.
That isn't what he's saying.
Oh, okay.
What he's saying is that when you do what you just said, giving to Torah, giving tzedakah before you learn or before you do anything else, you accomplish what the Torah has been about, which is mitzvah hua'ikar, bringing the Torah down to earth. It's not they do the accomplishments, the Chachamim, as we said earlier, they're drawing down light of Hashem into, we said, Bria and Yetzirah, and into the Malachim, the spiritual worlds. We draw it down into the physical world, and that is the Ikar. That's the root. That's the reason Hashem did all of this chain of his Histalshelus in the first place, is down here below. Remember, also Nisaba Kutchabrichu, the Holy One, wants, Nisaba desires, he wants a place in the lower world. So physical mitzvahs, they fulfill the whole purpose of the Torah, which is in this world.
So
that's what he's saying.
So I thought what I saw, and also in a previous Igaras, that tzedakah fulfills a dimension that even like the Torah alone does not fulfill, because it brings a light into this world that the Torah goes to a certain point, and then the tzedakah brings a light into this world that can only be brought about through tzedakah.
That's absolutely right.
Chesed, and it cannot be brought into this world just through Torah.
Exactly. That's exactly what he's saying.
So the Tomchei, the supporting Torah here is that it's doing the Netzach and Hod. So that is supporting Torah. It's supporting the purpose of Torah.
Exactly.
And I don't know if this is like going too far, but like as a teacher, I feel that when you want to reach the heart of another person, you also cannot reach them only intellectually.
And it's not going too far. That's beautiful. Absolutely. You have to demonstrate that you're holding space for them. Demonstrate that you're engaged with them. Absolutely.
Because when it's just like you come to my level and you don't have that holding space and like kind of unity, it doesn't have a permanence.
That's it. Well, that's exactly a beautiful mirror, Marshall, for what he's saying. For the Torah to have kiyum, permanence, the design of it, the way he designed it, its fulfillment, its eternal presence will be realized only through Ma'aseh B'Poel, deeds down here below. We'll go further. There you go. The deed of Torah, Ma'aseh of Tzedakah, the deed of Tzedakah brings Sholem, which is Shlim, which is completeness, wholeness. It accomplishes the wholeness, the allness of what Torah is designed for. Al Shem, because Shepula saw, because the action that you do down here below in a mitzvah b'maseh, with deed, the action that you do is Lahamshik or Hashem la'olam asiyah, brings down the light of Hashem to this world, this physical world, which is the world that he has his Eni Hashem Elokecha bo, right? Eretz Yisrael. It says the eyes of Hashem are on it from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. Planet Earth, and particularly planet Earth, the Harabayas, and particularly Harabayas, the foundation stone in Iraq, down here below. That's where everything is focused. That's where he wants to dwell, meaning he dwells there, right? That's where he wants to be realized. The Olam HaAsiyah, in the world of doing. V'zehu diktuk lashon Zohar Kodesh, and this is the precise understanding of the language of the Holy Zohar. It says, Manda Ovid Shemay Kedisha, who is it one who makes the holy name? The Ovid, that does something, Daiga specifically. Ki be'isirusa de lasata b'tzedakah, because And here is his wind-up on this chapter. Because it's through the act, the arousal of below, that with our physical tzedakah, and of course, our reaching out in any way, emotionally attaching, interacting with someone down here below, as well as giving money, any way that you extend yourself to another. This is why Hillel HaZaken was able to say that if you want to know the one single point, if you want to be taught Torah on one foot, it's v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. It's to love the other person like yourself. And the only way you can do that is by expressing something, either through gifts, through hugs, through faces, through money, etc., but through behavior. So it's the arousal from below, the chesed tator, and the chesed that's accomplished down here below, not in the upper worlds. That's ma'or chesed elyon. That arouses the highest levels of God's chokhmah, of God's kindness. Another example of the end is wedged in the beginning. The bottom of the heap, the physical, what we do in the physical, emotional, experiential, real plane of existence down here below, reaches up and arouses the highest levels, the deepest levels of Hashem. So the arousal down here below arouses the Chesed Elyon, the supernal Chesed, and therefore it sort of punctures the opening, Lahamshich, to draw down the Or Ein Sof, the light of the Infinite One. Bibichinas Chochma Elah, first it comes into Chochma Elah, the supernal Chochma, and which is the Yud of the Shem Havaya. Back to what is winding up. David made a name, right, through his Tzedakah Umishpat. He drew down the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So here, our arousal below reaches up into the highest levels, opens an opening, so that godliness drips into the first sphere of Chochmah, and then comes down and down and down, comes down the Yud. It starts in the Yud Shel Shem Havaya, Shel Shon Shem, Bechinas Hadiber, and then it goes into the lower Hay, which is speech, V'ruach Piv, and that's called the breath of his mouth. V'ruach Piv is the blessed, the spirit of his blessed mouth, or the spirit of him through his mouth. Today, in order to draw down the highest point of godliness into the lowest point of reality, which is this world of Asiya, which his eyes are always upon. That's the whole purpose of the Tzimtzum. The whole purpose was to create Olam Hazeh HaGashmi, in order that this lowest should reveal and be should reveal what it contains, which is essence of God from the highest. Al derech mashal, and by way of example, Havdil Havdalah St. Kate's, even though let's understand that a mashal is a mashal and is very different. The metaphor is a metaphor, and an analogy is an analogy, and it's different than the analog, but we can learn from the analogy. The Mesha Adam, and here's the analogy, like a person. A person, She'adam Einam Edarbe Ela La'acheder. What's the whole purpose of speech? To someone else should hear it. If you don't have anyone else, there's no reason for speech. So the whole act of creation is v'yadaber. He said, he spoke. So you see, the whole purpose is that is for the receptacle of speech, which is ultimately the human, because even though the angels hear and they do what he says, but it's the human who is empowered with the ability to do what God commands, and to, as we've said many times in the language of the Rebbe says all the time, mitzvah is lashon chibur. To do a mitzvah is to connect. Tzavto v'chibur, tzav. Tzav is to command, but tzavto also means to join, to connect with Hashem through the physical mitzvahs. Speech is not if you're alone. If you're alone, you normally, at least normally, one doesn't talk to oneself. The purpose of speech is for the other, and that's the metaphor. The purpose of creation, which was spoken into, whole purpose of creation, which was spoken into existence, is for the sake of the other. And the other is, the most other is us down here below. And then, therefore, Hashem contracted his mindfulness, his intellect, and his thought, and he spoke to them, Uvemaskilim yavinu. And anyone who's got a brain can understand what we've just said. Maskilim really means anyone who's got smarts. Seichel. That's today's Tanya. You know, I just want to remark the one thing that I may have remarked about this before, but I'm obviously going to remark about it again. We call this Chabad Hasidus, right? And people who are not in the know about Chabad Hasidus, and I've heard this say, it's intellectual. It's too intellectual for me. Chabad, Chochmah, Bina, Das. But what they don't know is what we know from reading the first page of Tanya, that the purpose of the Chabad, Chochmah, Bina, Das, Moyach Shalit Alalev, the whole purpose of the brain is not the intellectualization, but through exercise of the intellect to rule over the heart. That Moyach Shalit Alalev. That's the foundation principle of Tanya, that our brain should rule over our heart. And when our brain rules over our heart, then we have a feeling and we have an expression, we have a need, we have an interest in others. Heartful. All right, comments, questions? Who has a hand up?
Yeah, it's Reza.
Reza, yeah, go ahead.
This to me seems very profound because
Yeah.
It's like, especially when you brought up about Hillel, that Hillel was v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and we also know about Hillel that there was someone who tried to get him angry. There was a wager between two people, and someone tried to get him angry. And then when he couldn't get Hillel angry, he said, "Because of you, I lost 400 zuz." And Hillel said, it's like more worthwhile that you should lose 400 zuz and even 400 zuz more, and Hillel should not become angry. So it's like, because Hillel was chesed, that was, this Hillel was an example of chesed and Torah learning. If he becomes angry, then it's like the foundation of the Torah learning is lacking. And I think it's just such a tremendous insight here that that there are teachers that we've all, I don't know, like growing up, I had teachers who did become angry, and I don't remember their Torah.
That's interesting.
Because that's, if you want to connect with the other, you need that foundation of tzedakah toward that person, not in a sense that you're necessarily giving them physical things, but in a sense of that you're, that there's a chesed connection. And without that chesed connection, like you could talk and talk. I mean, I have these students who will say, "Oh, the teacher was droning on and on." Like she thought she's giving over her message, but they didn't feel that chesed between teacher and student, and it just went right over their heads.
Yep.
So as a teacher, it's very exciting for me, this particular Igros.
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, then Mr. Hashem, we'll see you tomorrow. Carry on. We'll all carry on.